The site was one of the largest slave markets during the transatlantic slave era, which saw millions of African captives hauled across the ocean to work without pay in mines and plantations in the Americas. Then known as the Vlekete Market, enslaved Africans were openly traded as commodities on this ground. The statues here depict a live scene, with white and black merchants negotiating the sale of two slaves.
The market was established in the year 1502 here in Badagry, where 300 slaves were being sold out every market day. And the market day is every five days here in Badagry. And in Badagry, you know why we have the largest slave market in Badagry? Because the slave market is very close to the Atlantic Ocean.
Not all the enslaved were sold on market day. Those who weren't were typically thrown into this dungeon and kept there until the next market day.
So after 5 days, they'll come and select some slaves. The selected ones, they'll go and sell those ones. The leftover will be here till another 5 days. They defecate here, they do all sorts of things here in the dungeon. And at that time, there's no bamboo that surrounds the dungeon. It's an open dungeon. Rain will fall on them, sun will shine on them.
The dungeon is several meters deep, and the curator says the only access was through a makeshift ladder.
It's really difficult to imagine this actually happened, but it did happen. It's actually very difficult to take in, but it's a reality. People actually went through this, and sometimes there are no words to explain this. Just no words to explain.
We have the big cannon gun in Badagry and the small cannon gun. The big cannon gun, the white people give us the big cannon gun, we give them 100 slaves. They give us the small one, we give them 40 slaves. They use the cannon gun to protect the slave market. That is why we are having the cannon gun beside the slave market.
So they built church in this compound in 1843, which is built with wood. And they built a story building in this compound, which is complete built with wood. But they converted the wooden story building. The wooden story building happened to be in their own residence house, converted it and changed it to bricks in 1845. The reason why they changed it to bricks, because they brought the bricks from England. The brick was brought from Liverpool, while the iron roofing sheet, the nails and the engines were brought from the Sheffield department.
Today, the building is a huge tourist attraction. There's also a water well in the compound, which was dug in 1842 and has never dried up.
So guys, what do you think about that video about the Bangari Slave Museum in Nigeria? And I did a little research on it, and trust me, it was no easy feat for all those slaves that passed through that, and then the action block and the dungeon that they put the unsold slaves in that they cannot escape. So if it rains, you're wet. If it's when it's hot, you have no shade because it was a deep hole and you cannot climb out. And this was a horrible time in our history. And not only that, they started in 1502, in the 15th century, and well, it started before the 15th century, but the transatlantic slave started in 1500, but the Ottoman Empire started slavery, I think, in the 12th century, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that, but the first slave trade was the Ottoman Empire when they enslaved thousands and millions of Africans and bring them to those to the Ottoman Empire and enslave them and use them for sex slaves and for keeping other slaves in check. If I remember correctly, the Ottoman Empire, they used to cut the penises of male slaves and then put them to guard the the prostitutes, well, not prostitutes, the sex slave girls at that time, so they cannot mess with them. So that was a horrible time. Then here comes the transatlantic slave, which means things got even more worse when they bring them to the Americas and the Caribbean and sell them all over the world. So I like to see our history preserved. Why? Because a lot of people still up to today still do not know or cannot visualize what happened to our ancestors in the 5th, 14th, 15th centuries come all the way up. And why I said it, because human beings, we are visual creatures. You can hear something, you can read about it. Most people cannot read something and visualize or get that the concept in their mind, can visualize that time period, as well as they can listen to a lecture about slavery and then it still does not enforce the same impact it would, but they want to physically and literally physically walk on the grounds and see the statues and see what happened to our ancestors. If that does not bring tears to your eyes, well, nothing else will, because I've never been to the continent, but I'm going hopefully this year. I'll be there. I'm either gonna go to Ghana or South Africa, but I'm still contemplating which way to go first. But I'm gonna be in the continent for sure, and this is some of my must see sites to see the not only the horror, the what our ancestors endured, and and that's why we cannot take for granted what we have today, and um we cannot take things for granted, as I said earlier, and then we must not destroy or try to hide these things from our kids, because these kids, modern day kids, they have no idea of what slavery was. So we have to bring them there to literally see it and touch it, because TV does misrepresent slavery. Slavery movies is very misrepresentative most of the time. It's not an authentic representation of what black people went through in movies. That's why I don't sort of fancy movies when it comes to slavery. And but when I go to Ghana or to Nigeria or to Zimbabwe, and South Africa, these countries that was where have sites where they used to house these things, it should tend to feel different. 'Cause we have a few of them in Jamaica where you can see where the Maroons were, um, how they cut heads off slaves, and how they used to um get the strongest male and break him, by then call it bucking. That happened in Jamaica as well. And we have sites, so I've felt or seen some of those sites physically, so I can understand. But to on a continent level, no, I haven't. And I've seen some people on the internet and even my comment section saying we should not be using we should destroy these sites, or we should not use them as tourist attraction. And I find that very disheartening for black people on the internet. Some of these influencers who are saying we should not use these sites as tourist attraction and we should destroy them. Why? Why would they want to destroy your past? A person who doesn't know their past can have a good future. I think it was Marcus Garvey who said something like that. And it's good to have it as a tourist destination, because it allows the country to gain financial revenue from the sites to help the country to build up more, to help the country's economy, and it helps both any race who want to go there and see what took place. And again, you say we are visual creatures. When you can literally touch and see the horrific treatment we had to endure in them time, it will change it. It can transform someone's life and make they see things differently. So for all those who influence us online who's talking about breaking down our ancestral history and our statues and don't use them as tourist attractions, you are idiots. You are morons. You cannot try to hide. I don't know what is wrong with this generation. We're trying to take down statues and oh, that statue doesn't represent this or that. So leave the statues them alone, because it even if you don't agree with the statue, leave it, because they are tearing and they are breaking and damaging statues in the states. For me, why? It represents a time period, and even if someone is celebrating a specific statue for some atrocities they committed, that can teach you or tell a child, listen, that guy on the Saturday, his name is so and so, he was this and he was that. But when they destroy it, you won't have a picture, a face to put to that atrocity. We need to keep these people, keep these statues up and educate ourselves and our kids about them. So I don't like to deal with American influences because they go crazy sometimes when it comes down to our history and they don't want to see this and they don't want to do that. Drives me crazy. Anyway, let me know what you think about this in the comment section. As always, tell a friend, like, comment, share, subscribe. Don't know how that works? Boom.